Hello. Hello, police. Yeah, what's the problem, sir? We just drove down our farm track. Yeah. Go and feed our pheasants. We come across a Range Rover with 3 people in it. Yeah. It appears that they're dead. I don't know what's happening. Blood in the motor all over them.
And welcome back to a new video on the Essex Boys case. As always, if you are enjoying the content, please do give the video a thumbs up. And if you're interested in the Essex Boys case, or simply true crime in general, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. Triple killings link to £500,000 cannabis find. Detectives who investigated the Rettendon triple murders believe there could be a link between the case and £500,000 worth of cannabis found in a farmer's pond in West Hanningfield. The cannabis, discovered in 53 black plastic packets and weighing more than 300 weight, had been dropped from an aircraft. It was found by farmer Jens Halstrup and recovered by Essex Police Underwater Search Unit around 22 months ago. The link was revealed exclusively to the Essex Chronicle on Wednesday by ex-detective Superintendent Ivan Dibley, who led the major part of the investigations until his retirement from Essex Police after 32 years. While detectives were hunting the cold-blooded killers, they took a serious look at the possible connection. Ex-detective Superintendent Dibley said, quote, "I strongly believe there was a connection between the cannabis in West Hanningfield and this case." Mr. Dibley also believes that Patrick Tate, the 18-stone bodybuilder who took various drugs, was a purpose for the murders. He had fallen out with Michael Steele when Steele had apparently imported poor-quality cannabis. Tate had threatened to make Steele beg for forgiveness on his knees and then kill him. But Womes and Steele got there first. They lured Tate, Tucker and Rolfe to Workhouse Lane, Rettendon, where they believed they would learn about a cocaine consignment. The 3 victims were shot 8 times. But Essex Police had neither fingerprints or forensic evidence to help them with their inquiries. It was only when Darren Nichols, originally from Braintree, a driver and general handyman for Steele, turned Queen's evidence that they managed to progress. The court had heard that Nichols drove the killers from Rettendon, believing apparently they were going on a recce involving drugs. Then he realised what had happened. Womes was wearing blood-stained white surgical gloves and overalls. Guns were dismantled and the killers were amused that Steele's shotgun had fallen apart, the court had been told. Nichols has now been given a new identity and moved to a new address, either in the UK or abroad. He was almost certainly the most important supergrass protected by Essex Police. Police had previously tried to lure Steele to a meeting by keeping up an IRA pretense, with undercover detectives working in Belfast. An undercover detective would have met with Steele and then tried to infiltrate his team, but the Irish story had not enticed him. The former detective superintendent praised detectives involved in the investigation. He said, quote, "Essex should be proud of them." Mr. Dibley said there was initially very little to go on, but they kept their commitment. At an early stage, the parents of Latchington ecstasy victim Leah Betts were suspects. Former Metropolitan Police Officer Paul and wife Janet were questioned for several hours before it was discovered they were being interviewed by Anglia Television when the murders took place. All 3 victims had been well known for some time to police as drug dealers. Tate was an armed robber and had once escaped from Billericay Court and eluded police by jumping on a waiting motorcycle. Steele had told Nichols he felt like the angel of death after the murders and said he felt he had done everyone a favour. Now, what I find quite interesting about that newspaper article is the date in which it was written. This is 1998, I would imagine after the trial. And Detective Inspector Ivan Dibley is giving an interview there stating that the drop in West Hanningfield, which happened a few weeks before Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were murdered, potentially has some kind of link to their deaths. Now, we know that Michael Steele flew planes. We knew that he was an experienced pilot. And it may well be that Detective Inspector Ivan Dibley is, I guess, giving us a clue that he believes that this was Michael Steele who was involved in that drug drop, the one that was lost in the farmer's pond. I think what's interesting, as I say, is that newspaper article is from 1998. This isn't an interview of Inspector Dibley from 1995 or 1996. It states there it was given on a Wednesday, shortly before that article was actually published. So did Michael Steele have any involvement in that drop over West Hanningfield? And did Tucker, Tate and Rolfe have any knowledge of that drug drop which happened in West Hanningfield? I believe it was posted, or at least published, I should say, in many local newspapers. So could that have gone to explain possibly why Tucker, Tate and Rolfe were down the lane on the evening of December the 6th? Did it have some sort of tie-in, as Detective Inspector Ivan Dibley states there, with this drug drop in West Hanningfield that went wrong? Interestingly, Darren Nichols also makes mention of Michael Steele flying in consignments of drugs from abroad up until the early part of 1995. Let's just take a very quick look back at this part of Darren Nichols' police interview. So first of all, what I'd like to ask you, Darren, is that did you have any knowledge of a plane or planes that are owned by Michael Steele? I have knowledge of an aeroplane he didn't own. He borrowed an aeroplane off of a good friend. Do you know who that friend is, Darren? I've got no idea, but you'll probably be able to find out because he was using it to bring drugs into the country sometime last year, 1995. He told me he'd landed in a field somewhere and that he'd been spotted by a farmer who took the registration of the plane down. So when he flew home, he phoned his mate up and said that he'd had to land for some mechanical reason, and his mate would probably get visited by the police. I don't think he knew if his mate was visited, but a farmer did take down the details of the aeroplane and, Mick was sweating it a bit. That's what made him decide to not fly anymore. You don't know exactly where he landed? No, I've got no idea because I've got no real involvement with it. He just told me as an afterthought that this happened. And, he put the shits up him a bit, so he said he wasn't going to fly anymore. I guess it could also be the fact that Detective Inspector Ivan Dibley is potentially alluding to the fact here that this mythical light aircraft, the one that was supposedly the actual lure for Tucker, Tate and Rolfe to get down the lane on the evening of December the 6th, i.e. the cocaine deal or the cocaine which was being flown in, is he kind of alluding here that he believes, at least in his mind, that the firm that were going to be flying that consignment in was also responsible for the disaster which took place at West Hanningfield? If you'd like to learn more about the Range Rover murders as told in court, then please click on the video in front of you now. You'll also see the Essex Boys playlist, which has an array of separate videos regarding this case in one convenient folder. Many thanks for joining me for this video. I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.